Now, this is a funny post about Daniel Jones and Patrick Mahomes. So I even made a video on, the QBR. Daniel Jones at 12 right now. So that means there's a bunch of other QBs behind him. And yes, my favorite quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, is behind him. Now, this whole QB thing is interesting because yes, QBs can definitely lead your team to victory, but also your team playing well can also lead you to victory. So it's like Bill Belichick will say, everybody has to do their job. So at the end of the day, you can have stats that are not better than Daniel Jones, but have a better record than Daniel Jones. So he's 4-0, and Daniel Jones is 2-3. So this doesn't really say much about Daniel Jones if you're really paying attention. Outside of that Vikings game, he hasn't really had a really bad game outside of the Vikings game. You can say the Dallas game was a bad game because he was missing on the deep balls. And if he would have hit on one of those, then we would have won that game. But that wasn't the only thing that happened in that game. So you can't blame the game strictly on him. Yardage wise, he had a lot of yards that game. Passing wise, outside of the deep ball, they were fine. Did he have some short throws that were probably behind his wide receivers? Yeah, but we're not going to. That's your nitpicking if you're going to say, well, he didn't throw perfectly in the short range. And then obviously he was terrible with the deep balls. But this just goes to show, like, you can be like 15th, 20th in QBR, but still win games because your team is doing. And also, he lost a wide receiver one. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Patrick Mahomes tackled Rashid Rice in the knee, and then he's out for the season. And he's not playing bad. Or maybe I'm lying, because if another quarterback had these 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and it wasn't Patrick Mahomes, I probably would be shitting on them. But then if they're 4-0, I don't know if I would be saying anything. But at the end of the day, if the records were flipped and those were the stats, then yeah, for like if you gave Daniel Jones stats to Patrick Mahomes and split the record, I don't think anybody would be crapping on Patrick Mahomes for Daniel Jones' stats because of the win record. So this is pretty funny because obviously we know Patrick Mahomes is a way better quarterback than Daniel Jones. It's just and the Giants have if I go back to strength of schedule, let's see where the Chiefs are, because I feel like they always give the Chiefs an easy schedule. So let's see where the Chiefs are on the schedule, because this is an interesting post, because we know that Daniel Jones is not as good as Patrick Mahomes. So if we go Kansas City, I guess, right? Is that what they're Chiefs? Let me see. Chiefs. Am I blind? I must be blind. Kansas City. I'm blind. All right, so here we go. Kansas City. Look at Kansas City right here. Kansas City is their schedule a little bit easier than us, according to this strength of schedule thing here. So I don't know. But yeah, we know Patrick Mahomes is better than Daniel Jones. But yeah, stats are always interesting. But if you don't like the quarterback like Daniel Jones, you really don't care what kind of stats he's putting up. He can throw for 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns this year with 9 interceptions and have a better, numbers than Patrick Mahomes, but nobody's going to respect Daniel Jones if you don't like him. All right, so now I'm going to move over to Reddit, and I see an offensive line post. So a lot of people, for the longest, were upset with fans when they said that we needed a better pass blocking offensive line for Daniel Jones. And obviously, Bobby Johnson was managing the line, and then also if you're bringing in the wrong personnel, it won't matter that Bobby Johnson's the one responsible for the line. But this person says Bobby Johnson still sucks, because look where Washington is. Washington is all the way down to 26. Now, a counter to that argument will be this though. See, Jaden Daniels still looks pretty good, minus the touchdowns. I don't think he has a lot of touchdowns, but he's very efficient, and he's pretty high up there when it comes to QBR and EPA, and the line is bad. So a lot of people who say, hey, you need a new quarterback, they'll say, well, Jaden Daniels is not doing bad, and his team is leading the division, even with Bobby Johnson. But yeah, the Giants are top 10 in pass protection, which I'm thinking if you go through all of the weeks, we would still be somewhere in the top 12, which has been a difference for a quarterback like Daniel Jones. A lot of people are upset because they want to get rid of Daniel Jones. But the argument that we needed a better offensive line never really made sense to them, because they want to get rid of Daniel Jones. The problem is the Giants don't want to get rid of Daniel Jones, so they have to fix the offensive line. It looks like it's fixed right now. And so because the line is blocking better and Daniel Jones is also playing better, then I would say that maybe it was a combination of Bobby Johnson was the problem, but also we had the wrong guys on the offensive line. We did bring in new guys, so just changing Bobby Johnson alone probably won't do it. And I think that's the problem with Washington, is that maybe they need a personnel change on that line. I don't know who's on their offensive line, but if you're 26, then yeah, it's not just Bobby Johnson, but he does suck though if he's been there for so long. And we had so many offensive linemen that didn't work out. Like, how did Evan Neal bust? Is that on Bobby Johnson or is that on Evan Neal? Now, somebody posted the passing chart for Daniel Jones, and when I look at the passing charts, I see a lot of what people complain about. A lot of people say they don't like the dinking and dunking passing. We don't have any passes over 20 yards, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, do y'all realize that Josh Allen is not throwing a lot of passes over 20 yards either? And obviously he's a much better quarterback. The main thing is, if we're throwing short passes and we're moving down the field, it's not an issue. If we're throwing short passes and we're not moving down the field, then it's an issue. If we're winning games throwing short passes and throwing the occasional deep ball, I think that's the ideal situation here. So the game versus Seahawks is the ideal way for the Giants to play. Take some shots downfield and actually hit on one or two of them. That would be great. That's really what you're going to see from the Giants. I don't know if, like, some Giants fans expect the New York Giants just to throw the ball down the field, like, 30 plus yard every single time that the Giants offense is out there. Like, they're supposed to take one shot per, 3 downs that you get. Like, I don't know if that's just you guys that play Madden and you say, well, on Madden, I have Jalen Hyatt running deep and I have Sligan running deep and I just take shots down the field. I don't get fans, because at the end of the day, we're winning games, but we're 2-3. We should have won more games, in my opinion, but we're playing some good football despite the fact that we're 2-3. I think that there's some good football there. It's not perfect. It's not what I would call a playoff team football, but it's competitive to say the least, outside of the Vikings game. So I don't know, man. I don't really understand why some people are so obsessed with Daniel Jones throwing over 20 yards. As I look at this chart, I'm not seeing a lot of 20-yard throws, but at the same time, we know we were able to move the ball down the field. And I saw Seahawks fans complaining about that, because also there's this thing called, yak. So if you throw a 10-yard pass and they run for another 10 yards, then it goes 20 yards right there. So the actual air time doesn't need to be higher as long as we're moving the ball down the field and executing in the red zone. But I don't know. You guys tell me what you think. Do you just want to see Daniel Jones throw bombs all the time? Like, I don't know what the expectation is. I mean, obviously we don't want him doing what he did versus Dallas and, not being anywhere close to Slayton on that one deep ball that was a penalty, or even the one where Slayton had to slow down for it. You kind of want him to run in stride like he was here. But I'm going to leave you guys with this. A lot of Giants fans get so carried away with Daniel Jones not throwing the ball downfield. But when we look at Josh Allen's last game, he threw the ball downfield, but he was not completing. So I guess this is what you could have if Daniel Jones tried to mirror what Josh Allen's doing, just throw the ball downfield more often. And honestly, if we go over to Patrick Mahomes' chart, he's undefeated, and as you can see, there aren't too many passes over 20 yards. And I don't know if it's because he's Patrick Mahomes, why nobody doesn't say anything like, oh my God, he's throwing 20-yard passes. There's nothing over 20 yards. But that's how Giants fans were acting before the Seahawks game, where Daniel Jones finally hit on the deep ball. But at the end of the day, as you go through a lot of these passing charts, even if the quarterback averages more air yards than Daniel Jones, they're not throwing 20-plus yard passes that often. And if they're doing it, they're not really connecting on it. I mean, look at Patrick Mahomes. He's the one that he threw over 20 yards, he missed. But I don't know, Giants fans, tell me what you think down below about the different fan posts. None of these are mine posts. I'm just reviewing them and just giving my thoughts. So comment down below.